missed the Kit Kats at break. I saw a lot of people eating Kit Kats. I'm a little jealous. So we're just going to spend a few minutes talking a little bit about our new members. Yesterday at our member meeting. This is the guy who just signed me up to lead a working group. So. Oh no, actually, that was you, Carl. Thank you. This is very exciting. In addition to my Kit Kat, we have 3 new member organizations that joined NetHope yesterday. NetHope is a member organization, so the way you become a member of NetHope is by having the members vote you in to NetHope. And it is not just a show up and send a check, it is a lot more, and actually organizations usually take about a year to go through the process of joining NetHope. They usually attend a chapter meeting or a summit, participate in some activity around NetHope, and then they decide if it's a good fit for their organizations or not. So very fortunate that over the last year we had 3 member organizations that have participated in multiple chapter meetings and the summit, and I'm here today to welcome them. So first, let me introduce you to Glenn, who's here to represent Right to Play, and he's going to show us a brief video to tell us a little bit about Right to Play. Welcome, Glenn, and welcome to this community. I expect a lot of you.
I know, I don't get a Kit Kat. I accept Kit Kats as opposed to gratuities. Thank you very much. So I'm going to spare you slides, and we're just going to do a video. We had a marketing firm in London who saw our web presence and some of our marketing materials, and they immediately flew from London to Toronto and told us no. So they worked for a year with us. We did some filming in Africa and Asia, and I'm going to let the video speak for itself.
They think they can traffic us, abuse us, marry us, and use us. They think that our futures are their own to shape, that they can determine our God-given fate. They think they can send us to jail for being raped. But we'll rise above the fear and the hurt and the pain. We'll rise above the rules and traditions they claim. We'll rise above the hypocrisy and the blame and the shame it might bring to our family name. 'Cause our lives are worth more than the pennies we're paid. Our lives are worth more than the clothing we made. Our lives are worth more than the guns and grenades. Our lives are worth more than just dying from AIDS. So don't treat us like only a fraction of our worth. We should know how to read, not just how to give birth. We're not just taking up space on someone else's earth. We're not your cheap labor. We're not your child brides. We're not just poor kids with some flies in our eyes, and we won't just stand by while the world lets us die. No, we rise.
So I did that on my Samsung in a weekend. Thank you very much. So we're really excited to be a member, and we look forward to meeting most of you and working with you and collaborating. Thanks very much.
Okay, the next organization I'd like to call up is Operation Smile. Bentley is a fairly new to the organization in his role, but we're very fortunate to have him here for our second summit, and welcome Operation Smile. Bentley, welcome to NetHope.
Thank you very much. I don't know, that was a great video, but I'm going to try. So if we could roll just a short video on Operation Smile, please.
It all started with a smile. More than 35 years later, Operation Smile is growing into something much bigger. We believe where you live shouldn't determine if you live. We believe safe surgery is a right, not a privilege. And we believe in partnering with local health workers to build better communities. to create a future where health and dignity is for everyone, everywhere. And we're doing just that, one smile at a time.
Thank you. Slide come up, okay? Yeah, okay. Who is Operation Smile? What are we? We're based out of Virginia Beach, Virginia. Been around for about 45 years. We were founded by Dr. Bill McGee and his wife, Kathy, who back in the 80s went on a mission to the Philippines to do surgery. Dr. McGee is a very renowned dentist and plastic surgeon. They saw such a need there to help children with these deformities, with cleft palate and cleft lips, that they started Operation Smile, and it's grown into what it is today. We're one of the largest surgical organizations in the world, and we've helped nearly 300,000 patients. We have over 6,000 volunteers from over 80 countries. We do about 175 international missions a year. Some of the numbers from FY18 is last year we served over 17,000 patients in 29 countries in 90 sites. So we're all over. We focus on cleft condition, cleft palate and cleft lip. What that is a tear in either the upper lip generally or the palate. And this not only causes health problems to where children can't nurse properly, children can't eat properly and get the nutrition they need, but there's also a big social stigma associated with cleft condition. They're ostracized in their communities, and by fixing the lip, the palate, so they can speak normally, they look more normal, they're brought back into society and can live a more normal life. We're trying to find out what causes this condition, and there's been an amazing amount of research, and one of the interesting theories about it is that we think one of the issues may be that in a lot of these countries, the mothers cook over campfires, and maybe smoke inhalation of some sort is helping cause this condition. Of course, we have to look at what kind of fuels and everything are used, but that's one thing we're looking at. Real quickly, just talk about some of the sample projects we're doing out of many at Operation Smile. Just completed a global volunteer management system, managing over 6,000 volunteers. We just finished phase 1. It was based on Microsoft Dynamics 365, and we had software support from Microsoft, grants for Dynamics 365, and we received development and implementation support from Whiffley. And they didn't pay me for this plug, but both have been excellent partners to work with. Whiffley we worked with now for a year and a half on this program. We'll start phase 2 next year, and we're very happy with those organizations. We're also going to start a medical records project here pretty soon. Right now, everything we do is paper-based with some electronic systems used where we take a laptop, take it out to the site, keep medical records, bring it back to headquarters, dump the data. In this project, I'm really hesitating to say electronic medical records because I'm trying to train my staff that before you say how we're going to do things, we need to find out what we're going to do. And so it may not be electronic at all, depending on what we determine. And we're currently using some software from a company called Vitro out of Dublin. So this is our vision. We envision a future where health and dignity are improved through safe surgery. As I say, right now we focus on cleft. Who knows what we'll do in the future, but this is where we're going. I just wanted to add on a personal note, I've been working in IT for about 40 years now, and I know that seems, I look like a millennial, so I know that's hard for you to believe. But my career has been spent working for companies where my efforts have been used to make other people more wealthy. This is the first time I've worked for an NGO, and I feel blessed to have this opportunity to work for organizations like Operation Smile and what you do to help make this world a better place. And so thank you for allowing us into NetHope, and have a great conference. Thank you.
Great. This last organization that was voted in yesterday from our at our member meeting and I don't know if you can switch the slides up there, but it's the Fundación Panamericana para el Desarrollo, or FUPAD, might be a little easier. This organization is based in Colombia, and we met them through our Latin American chapter meeting. They were working very closely with Norwegian Refugee Council, with NetHope staff in building some connectivity for the Venezuelan migrant crisis in Colombia. FUPAD used to work exclusively in Colombia, but over the last 15 years or so really have a much bigger reach in Latin America. They were unable to come here this week, but we're delighted to welcome them also as our first Global South member, headquartered in Colombia. So welcome to FUPAD. And wanted to just finish up by thanking the membership committee of the board and of our members who spend a lot of time diligently looking at applications and finding the right fit for this organization. So thank you to Catherine Brown, our chair, and for your leadership, for all your support. And Jonathan, thank you for my Kit Kat. Have a great rest of the afternoon.
How's everybody feeling? Good? Good. Welcome to our new members. It is great to get you officially inside the NetHope community at yet another summit. As you have no doubt realized through your interactions with NetHope in the past, next year it's going to feel like the old family reunion for you guys as well. I know it's been a busy couple of days, so I always hate it when folks ask me to do this. But I'm going to ask you to do it anyway. I would encourage those of you in the back of the room to come up to the front. It actually is really friendly up here. And if that doesn't work, it's much warmer up here if you're cold, and if you're hot, it's much cooler up here. So whatever you want, and there's drinks for those that you sit in the front row. I'm not really sure I can make that happen, but let's give it a shot. Right. So yeah, notice Brian is right up here in the front. So our next speaker is from DFID, which is a leader in leveraging technology to improve impact, and certainly an organization with which many of NetHope member organizations work with. For those of you that are unfamiliar with DFID, and I can't imagine that there's a single one of you in the room, but DFID is the Department for International Development, the UK government's body, dedicated to promoting sustainable development and ending extreme poverty. Last January, in the throes of a delightful Seattle winter, we had the pleasure of hosting Permanent Secretary Rycroft to come and spend some time with NetHope members that had offices there and some of our corporate partners, really as part of a fact-finding, information learning process. And I think the experience that all of us had through that process was a curiosity and real desire to learn more about what was actually happening in the field and what might be possible. So I'm thrilled that Adrian Blundel, the CIO from DFID, is here with us today to shed some light on the way that DFID is thinking about development as a platform and the use of technology standards and tools and data to help all of us understand what's working, to provide greater insight into the work that organizations that work with and through DFID, the impact that they are having, so that all of us will be better in the work that we do. Please join me in welcoming Adrian Blundel.
So, good afternoon, everybody. Am I working? Yes, I'm working now. Good afternoon, everybody. And a big thank you to Lauren for that introduction, and thanks for inviting me to talk for a few minutes about what we've been thinking about, I guess, within DFID around digital data and technology over the last year or so. But I guess it's something that's been evolving for some time now. So it's something I'm very keen to share with you, and I guess to put out some challenges out there on how we can work collaboratively and collectively in the international development sector. So myself and a colleague, John Adams, are here today and tomorrow, so we'd have further conversations with you. I've been the CIO in DFID now for about 3 years, but I've spent my entire career, I guess, in the intersection of ICT, international development, but also transformational change, organizational change. And I guess it's the combination of those three things that, interestingly, I'm kind of picking up again and again. There have been some fantastic discussions, some really thought-provoking conversations in the sessions that I've been in. And I think we've got, certainly within DFID, we can completely empathize, and certainly in my role, I can completely empathize with the three strategic dimensions that Lauren set out yesterday, which is connecting, and one of my key roles is to ensure that DFID remains connected globally with our overseas operations, but also connected with other parts of the UK government and connected with all our partners. So that's a clear incentive and commonality that we have. Empowering and enabling is also something, so ensuring that we've got digitally enabled people and we've got the right technologies as well is something really important. But transformation is also something that is very close to my heart. Not just transforming us as organizations, but potentially transforming the entire aid sector, the entire kind of international development modes of operation. And I want to talk just a little bit about that. But I guess the other clear commonality that we have, Lauren, is that I'm based in Scotland as well. So I think what I can, it's been known to rain once or twice in Scotland, and I think what I can challenge you on is the variety of mosses that we have compared to Seattle. But you're very welcome to come and visit us, and we can have a face-off. Now we have been thinking about digital for quite some time within DFID. So we published our digital strategy back in January of 2018, which set out how we wanted to approach doing development in a digital world. And we set ourselves a pretty high aspiration and ambition to become a global leader in digital technology and development, recognizing the potential that good use of digital data and technology has for all of our work. And I was really interested to join USAID colleagues actually earlier today. They're going through a similar process of concluding on their strategy, and they very kindly said that some of the work that we've been doing has been a real influence on them, which is great. I mean, I think the opportunity to partner up, certainly for donors in this space, is enormous. But since that strategy has been published, we've kind of been doing a little bit of thinking as well about how we join up a number of different areas. And we've partly been, I guess, influenced by a change in senior leadership within DFID. So as Lauren mentioned, we have a new permanent secretary. And Matthew has shown a real interest in the potential of digital data and technology to really have a transformative impact. And I think what that stimulated for us is some thinking about not just the typically two areas that I think many of us have been involved in, and that's firstly, how can we change our organization's operations? So how do we ensure we are efficient? How do we ensure that we remain connected? And that kind of internal corporate function almost. And then on the other hand, the use of digital data and technology as a real delivery vehicle for better development. And I thought the conversation this morning actually about how do we organize ourselves to make those connections? Does it sit within the CIO function? Does it sit within the program function? It's a really interesting conversation. We're going through something similar at the moment. But as part of this, we were invited, we encouraged our senior management team to sit down and have what we called a digital immersion day back in January. And we managed to lock them all in a room, courtesy of PwC, and we spent a day, and we brought in people from Gartner, and in fact, We had Dial come and speak to us as well, and Kate from Dial. I don't know if Kate's here, but she talked to the team as well. And I think at the end of that day, we concluded that, or at least the senior management team within DFID recognised that there was something here that unless we kind of get with the show, we are going to be missing a huge opportunity. So as part of that, and as part of that conversation, we used an analogy of 3 digital cups, and I'm just going to kind of talk you through these because I think the first 2 are what I've been talking about. So the first of these is it's the kind of what we do within the organization. How do we make sure finance works, and how do we make sure HR works, and how do we make sure our commercial activity is working properly, and how do we make sure we're kind of connected, the nuts and bolts and the systems that we all use. And that's important. Let's not forget that that's really, really important. And then, of course, there's the digital as development tool. So this is the ICT for development programs that we've all been talking about. But we think there's another one as well. We think there's one in the middle. And we've called this, for now, the international development kind of data ecosystem. And this is the data that we're all generating. This is the experience that we all have. These are the lessons that we're all kind of learning. And is there an opportunity for us to really leverage this a lot more than we have been? So we've kind of said, well, it's the combination of these things which we've just named development as a platform for now, as a convenient thing. It's really just a concept, it's emerging, but I just want to talk you through some of the ideas that we've got and start a conversation with you on whether you recognize this, whether you think this is something that is worth pursuing. So the first thing to do is just let me show you a little bit about what we've been thinking about with the data landscape. So we kind of think of it as a bit of an onion. There's lots of different data. Data is absolutely the gold dust that we're probably not taking advantage of. We, certainly within DFID, we value financial information. We absolutely value people information. What we haven't really valued enough is data. Data as an asset, I suppose. And we see in the private sector, how a lot of people are saying, well, data now is the most valuable thing that we have. And I'm not sure that we attach the value to it in the international development community in the way that we perhaps should. So these are the kind of the areas that the kind of categories that we've thought about for data. So if we start with the kind of inner circle there, we've got the data for external reporting. This is the stuff that we're obliged to do. So for example, with us, it's our statistics on development, parliamentary accounts, reports on international climate financing. You'll have your own versions of this, I'm sure, probably a lot of which we ask you to do. You've then got kind of internal data. So this is the stuff that makes your organization tick. It's your HR data, it's your internal accounting information, and things like approval processes, risks that you manage, and so on. There's then partner data. This is what we ask our partners, our delivery partners, to share with us. Detailed activity, results reporting, geolocational data, beneficiary data, and delivery risk information. And then you've kind of got more contextual information, more abstracted, that's perhaps removed from particular activities or projects. So things like research, things like academic studies and other evidence. And then you've got other things like national statistics and some of the World Bank studies, for example. But this together creates a really rich environment. And with the promise of artificial intelligence, with the opportunities that new data science techniques and tools offer us, are we really taking advantage of what that can tell us and the pool of data that we should be generating? So I guess the challenge, and here we go, a quote from Kate recently, is only through strong collaboration. Collaboration has been a theme, I think, today. At this conference from what I've picked up. But it's only through this information sharing and collaboration that we really can start to make a real difference, I think, to development and spot trends and opportunities to utilize the power of technology. The tools are largely there, and broadly, I know this is a challenge, but broadly we have the digital capability within our organizations to respond to some of these data challenges. I think the real challenge is a cultural one, and I know that Lauren again on yesterday was talking about nobody is going to disagree that we shouldn't collaborate. Collaboration is, yeah, absolutely we should do that, but it comes at a cost, and it requires effort, and too often I think we say, well, we can't quite get around to that yet, it's not our priority. And we end up working in silos, we end up duplicating work, we end up building duplicate capability often, and we often end up using different data standards. So I think that kind of summarizes the challenge. But there are opportunities here. Here's a quote from an American, actually, social anthropologist. It starts with a few people, and maybe the time is right for us to be thinking about how we can really make a difference in this space. Again, the technology is there. Some exciting work is already underway. We've been hearing from Microsoft about some of the work that's been happening around the common data model. We're closely engaged, as I know a lot of you are, in helping to see some real product from there. And we do have some things that are looking very promising. And I think we do need to shift to being able to collaborate by default. Instead of just talking about it, let's really do it. And instead of just talking about transparency and committing to the standards, let's make sure that it happens. And let's be ambitious, and let's ensure that we continuously learn, because there is an awful lot of change, the pace is really fast, and there is lots that we can learn from each other. And let's be open to that change and open to new data flows. So, development as a platform, we've called it a data ecosystem for development, and looking at this slide, it looks like Japan. And I'm sure the Japanese, we would love the Japanese to be part of this solution, but I think we may need to think about our logo for this. But I mean, it summarizes the need for interconnectivity and the need for all partners, for all donors, all suppliers, to really be an active part of this vision. So we'd like to ensure that we can continue to push open data standards. We would like to ensure that we can have timely and trusted sources of data from everybody, and we would like to really stimulate a culture of real collaboration across the entire development community. Now, we kind of have a picture of what this might look like. I guess for those of you from an ICT background, this might start to make a bit more sense. My colleague John Adams, John, can you stand up and wave? Because if you've got questions on this model, John is the man to ask, not me on this one. But it really does talk about the way that we ought to all have inputs into an essential collection, a data lake as we've described it there, and using some of the existing open standards like IATI to drive this concept forward. And that kind of gives you a summary of some of the approaches that we would like to take on this, using cloud, working with both public and private access. So I guess that's the essence of what I wanted to say. DFID is absolutely committed to doing more in this space of digital data and technology. We recognize that it has huge potential, and I think again to hark back to Lauren's points yesterday, the real challenge for us is to move that potential into the real power of technology. We've not yet tapped into it, and it's latent. But I think our challenge here is to really up the pace of what we're doing. So thank you very much for your attention. We'll have a couple of minutes if there are any questions. I've gone through those slides. I hadn't rehearsed this enough, so I've gone through slightly faster than I'd intended, so we do have 4 minutes. So if there are any questions, then please do raise your hand, and we will have a microphone that will be rushed to the front. We've got one down here.
Thanks very much for being here and a fascinating concept shared. My name is Brian, work with box.org. With many thousands of technology providers on the landscape for technology enablement in the landscape, how are you in thinking about models, making sense of this gigantic base of vendors and providers as you sort of distill who gets to participate in this and who doesn't?
Well, I mean, I think the one thing that's clear is that we're not going to start telling you what the answer is in that space. I think we recognize that that we can take a leadership role around trying to pull together the right partners, about asking for standards to be set and actually encouraging people to talk together. In some cases, perhaps not necessarily the natural partners on this. So I think certainly the work that we've started to do with Microsoft, but with others as well, I think is an opportunity to try and define some common standards and to get a common dialogue going and to get a conversation going amongst those. So, and I mean, this group actually is a perfect example of how you've already started that conversation. You're bringing in suppliers, you're bringing in private sector partners, as well as having the NGO community here. So, I mean, what we would certainly like to do is to perhaps bring more donors to the table as well, and start to think about how we can, have a real conversation across the entire development landscape.
Hello.
Hi.
Hey, Krista Lincoln from Dan Church 8. I completely agree that data sharing is a challenge. We are NGOs, we are competing too much and not collaborating. So definitely we have to change our mindset and structure and culture. My question is that how can we as NGOs together with you, DFID, try to change the incentive schemes and the way of you granting money to us to promote that collaboration and not the competition?
Yeah, well, that's a very good question, and I'm not sure I'm the most qualified in DFID to be able to answer that. But I think I was involved in the GDPR conversation actually that we had earlier, and I think there are opportunities. For example, in that GDPR space, the common question was, or the common issue actually was that every organization here was recognizing that this was an issue, GDPR was an issue, and there weren't enough resources, and there wasn't enough skill and knowledge to tackle that particular issue. Is there something that we can do within the donor space to recognize that and to say, well, maybe there's a different funding model that we can look at here that provides a common set of resource and advice, rather than you having to pick that up under every kind of initiative that you bid for. It reduces duplication and it potentially makes things more efficient. So, I think there are different models that we can look at, but I wouldn't hold your breath on seeing any huge change in that model, certainly in the current climate that we have. Okay. Well, on that note, let me say thank you very much, and huge congratulations to the NetHope team for organising this. It's been a fantastic conference. I've really enjoyed it. We've got a lot out of it, and I hope to be able to talk to some of you. Myself and John are around tomorrow, so look forward to chatting. Thanks very much.
In every time we do a summit, there's like a theme that sort of starts organically, and it kind of winds its way through the event. My research is short-lived at best, but I did find out that there are 920 different varieties of moss in Scotland, which happens to represent 60% of all mosses in Europe. I'm not quite sure how that compares to Washington State yet, but I'm going to find out. Our next speaker is Tara Norman, Executive Vice President of Humanitarian and Development with Mastercard. And I've had the pleasure to get to know Tara over the last several years as our paths have crossed in many different places. And I think what's really interesting about what Tara leads at Mastercard is a really unique approach around thinking about how the investments and tools and resources that Mastercard can make available based on their expertise and their skill set, make available to the nonprofit sector, not because it's the right thing to do, which of course it is, but also because it makes good business sense for Mastercard and how they can leverage the R&D and the skill sets that they bring to the commercial side and also bring that to the sector in which we work. And it's been fascinating as we've partnered with Mastercard over the years, and we've learned from some of the work that they have done about the innovative approach that they take. And so Tara will be sharing some of that with us this afternoon. Please join me in welcoming Tara.
Good afternoon, everybody. Gosh, it's late in a long day. I'm hoping to make this a conversation, so let's say if I can keep this on time and maybe it can become one. I'm Tara, and as was mentioned, I'm from Mastercard. I wanted to talk, I thought I'd take a little bit of a different take maybe than some of the sessions that you've been sitting in today. And I wanted to take it back to the theme of the conference. As I understood it, the theme of the conference was vision, action, hope. Vision, action, hope. And as I was pondering about what I might share with you today and what I might talk about, I actually was thinking about my dad. When I was growing up, I don't know if you guys had these truisms, but my dad used to say, life is 10%, 10% inspiration, 90% perspiration is what Dad used to say. And so before I came here, I actually Googled it because I was worried that it wasn't just my dad who said it, and apparently Thomas Edison said it too, but whatever. For me, it was my dad. So what does that mean? To me, that means that you can have all the vision and all the hope and all the fancy talks that you want, and that probably results in about 10% of the outcome of what you're going to drive, that 90% comes from action. And that probably resonates with a lot of you folks in this conference. This conference is very unique for me. I am an anointed member of the blah blah circuit, you know. So a lot of times when I'm not talking with practitioners, so it's a real honor for me to be here and to be speaking to you. But I wanted to talk a little bit about action and how we view that at Mastercard, because what I find, not just in our corporate, but in this development world universe that we inhabit, that sometimes we can mistake activity for progress. And so I wanted to make the distinction between action with learning. And I was hoping maybe to walk through a little bit in a very honest way and discuss with you some of the actions that we've taken and what we've learned, and then where it's taken us on that journey. So I'm going to take you on a little bit of a journey. So Mastercard, you know, our tagline is opening priceless possibilities. And we do this via a digital network. So I don't know how many of you think of us as a credit card company, but what we are is a interoperable infrastructure that allows billions of transactions to happen globally in a seamless way, in a safe, simple, secure manner. And that's really important if you take into account some of the previous discussion we were having about data, because what's more precious to you and what's more important to you than the security and the safety of your financial data. So not only are we a digital company, are we a payments company, we're a transaction company, we're a data company. We actually, I'm told, but then the lawyers get involved and they say, don't say that, but it's actually true. But apparently we have one of the largest data warehouses on the globe, okay? Next to apparently, or bigger than, the National Weather Statistics Data Warehouse, which is apparently the largest one. But we're big, we're huge in this space. So this is what our core competency is, and this is what we do. But it was interesting. We had a vision. Our CEO had a vision, so I'll start with vision. Our CEO had a vision that actually he wanted us to be a force for good in the world, and he thought you know, we actually have the potential to use our business for good. So business doing good is how I think of our first phase of our journey. And for us, business doing good looked like we endowed, when we IPO'd in 2006, we gave 10% of our corporate stock to a foundation, the Mastercard Foundation. So to me, this is one of the largest public-private partnerships, frankly, out there. That 10% was worth about $500 million. They are our largest shareholder. We're owned by a foundation. I guess you guys sort of feel that way about DFID, but that's a separate issue. And that $500 million that we endowed the foundation with, 13 years ago, is now worth about $20+ billion. So to me, that was our sort of first foray, I would say, in this doing good space. But what did we learn from this? That philanthropy alone can be catalytic, but it doesn't produce the sustainable change that we wanted to see in the world. That often philanthropic organizations, donors, frankly have a trouble distributing the huge dollar sums that they need to distribute in a meaningful, sustainable way, in a way that can actually be leveraged and used. We believe, one of the things that we learned is we said we could, as Lauren mentioned, we believed we could have more sustainable impact. If we didn't just give dollars, but we actually gave of our capabilities, we gave of our business, we gave of our business acumen. So that's sort of what, to us, drove what I call phase 2, which is, I put these little cute quips on the titles of the phases, so I want to actually tell them to you. Using our business to do good. So instead of business doing good, I talked about using our business to do good. And what that meant was not giving money, but giving of our capabilities, right? So we did a number of great activities in that space too. In 2015, we made a commitment to include 500 million excluded people into the formal financial sector, 40 million merchants, and we're basically at that target now, just about 4 years later. We pioneered a lot of great work in data philanthropy, which is actually it's a very complex endeavor because of knowing of our sort of, how should I say, single-minded focus on the security of that data and ensuring that what you give out and how you give it out is, maintains the integrity of the security of the underlying data. But we pioneered work. We were some of the leaders in data philanthropy. We gave a grant to Harvard University, who did some amazing research that gave local governments pathways to economic development. We've grown our data philanthropy work. We now have a $50 million partnership with the Rockefeller Foundation. We've participated in numerous high-level fora. So we've been on the high-level humanitarian digital cash financing panel and DFID's cash panel and humanitarian WEF high-level panel, and everything's high-level in this world is what I've learned. It's great for the ego. We've done a lot of convenings. We've done a lot of convenings on data philanthropy, on data security, on privacy, on identity, on cash programming, because we wanted to get our knowledge out there. We built digital solutions. We built a number of really interesting and cool digital solutions. So we took our capabilities in digital transactions and building digital networks. We built a solution called Coupa. Coupa is in the education space, and what it does is it enables a poor woman living in rural Uganda, who might live like a 3-hour walk from school, to actually enable her to pay the school fees of her child. Because we know that often it's that payment or the lack of payment of a school fee that precludes that child from taking the school exam, and it ultimately gets her kicked out. So we created a tool that enables her to do that. We created a tool that enables, in that same platform, enables us to now track teacher attendance. So through a biometric identity capability, we're able to sort of track teacher attendance, which then can lead to solving the issues of teacher absenteeism. We've got a solution in the healthcare space, partnering with the Gavi Alliance, where it's called the Wellness Pass, tracking adherence to vaccine regimens. That sort of helps practitioners ensure that patients are adhering to the vaccine regimen, but also helps countries, governments, donors start to track that data. We talked a lot about data in the previous presentation, track the information to ensure that you're leading to disease eradication. We have programs and we have platforms or products, I should say, in agriculture space that connect smallholder farmers to agribuyers. So starting to create a digital trail for that smallholder farmer, giving them more agency in their purchase, taking bargaining power from the middleman, giving it back to the farmer, so that they can extract greater rents for their produce. So we've built all kinds of products, we've convened, we've paneled. We sparked a lot of dialogue, I'd say. And you probably have been having a lot of the same dialogues. What I've seen, whether it's in the halls of Davos or whether it's at WEF or whether it's in ID for Africa, what I've heard is the successes, the learnings. What I've heard is a lot of dialogue around private sector needs to be engaged. Private sector should be engaged. I've heard a lot about sustainability and scalability. I've heard a lot about cooperation, about how we need to cooperate better, not just private and public, within public. We talk a lot about the competition issue that was raised. I hear that issue raised a lot. But in most cases, what we find is, in my learnings, is that it's 4 or 5 years later and we're still having the same damn dialogue. We're still talking about private sector should participate and should they be a part of it and can they make profit, right? These are old dialogues. This is not action. This is not action with progress. In hindsight, 3 years after the humanitarian summit where we demanded why not cash and if not now, when, we're lucky if we can claim 7% of humanitarian aid being delivered in cash. If you exclude WFP, you're probably at 1%. We talk about building resilience. There's a lot of dialogue about bridging the divide between humanitarian and development and how do we build resilience and how do we ensure that the infrastructures that we lay, right, lead to development. But what I see a lot of, just coming out of UNGA Week, just coming out of the World Bank spring meetings, are a lot of vanity projects. This is private and public sector alike, guys. We're both doing this, right? I think what I see is a lot of vanity projects. As long as it has the word blockchain or AI or machine learning, you're funded, right? But what happens as a result of these is that we get funded, we flush $1 million down the toilet, you probably get a couple thousand users, and in 2 months the pilot's gone. But what's really worse than that is the opportunity to actually build a sustainable, scalable program that could have happened. Maybe there was an actual commercial solution that could have been deployed and could have been sustained, has been obviated because the governments get dazzled by the donor dollars, right? We deployed a bunch of pilots. I'll be honest, we deployed a bunch of these solutions and we got a lot of great interest in them. Government said they loved them. The community said they loved them. I had parents coming to me, thanking me for Coupa. This has changed our lives, okay? But the challenge is we're still very challenged to figure out how to make these commercially sustainable. How do we make these programs and products that we know add value from not just from the perspective of delivering the service, but from the perspective of actually starting to create data or create a digital track record that puts them on the path to financial inclusion. But we're struggling to make these financially sustainable. So after a couple of years of convening and intervening and chairing and paneling and piloting and all at a very high level, I think we've decided to take a slightly different approach, and that's what I really wanted to talk to you about today. So this is phase 3. This is doing good as a business. We've actually now, in the past year, set up a new business within Mastercard, and that's actually the unit that I run. I've got a couple of colleagues in the back as well. Paul and Alex will happily talk to you about it afterwards, that we call Community Pass. Community Pass is a social impact business. And what we went about solving, what we wanted to solve was these challenges I had just laid out to you. We had been building ourselves a number of programs and pilots and products, but what we lacked was this commercial sustainability. So we said, how can we do this? Our strategy was to build upon our core competency as a digital infrastructure provider in our day jobs, right? In Mastercard's core business, in affluent markets, and in markets around the globe. We're present in over 210 markets around the globe. We like to say more than the UN. We build digital infrastructure. So the business that we are running now at Mastercard in the social impact effort is a digital infrastructure, but to serve those living in marginalized communities, in disconnected environments, who may not be financially profitable for your classic banks and financial institutions. Our infrastructure, you can think of it in sort of three key parts. What we're trying to build is the digital rails that not only our own solutions would ride off of, but frankly, we're hoping that all of you practitioners, all of you, the technologists here, the people, anyone who wants to serve people living at the base of the pyramid, we're hoping that you will join us and build off of this infrastructure. What does it entail? The first part is a digital ID. Digital ID that has a biometric element to it. So what we've done is created an infrastructure that enables us in a safe and secure way to store, to tokenize, and to store biometric data in a safe and secure manner, but then also to create an interoperable functionality. So how can we take a biometric and make it interoperable with another service provider's biometric capability? If WFP or let's say UNHCR offers or issues a biometric credential to one of their beneficiaries, shouldn't that be able to be leveraged by a Save the Children program provider? That's the first element of our infrastructure, is an ID or a digital ID capability with a biometric optionality. The second sort of element of our infrastructure is what we call a multi-wallet, or a credential storing wallet, that enables you to store voucher credentials or commodities that are potentially given to a beneficiary, or a currency. And then the last is an interoperable point of interface capability. This forms the digital rails. In each of these elements, we design for interoperability of services and service providers. We design for data security. We design for data privacy. We are trying to build sort of robust, if you will, commercial grade, Mastercard grade rails that we would serve you folks on to those living at the base of the pyramid. But the idea is to do so with new commercial models. So our hope is that by building these common rails, we lower the cost to serve for all service providers. You've all probably heard the stories about the beneficiary in Lebanon who had 17, who gets 17 different cards, one for housing, one for this, one for that, that's just the cards, guys. If we actually tallied the cost to serve that one beneficiary, if you take all the different points of interfaces, some of these iris scan things, they cost $700 per device. That's just one program. That's for one type of aid distribution. So what we're doing, and if you think about it, again, this is what we do every single day, whether it's leveraging your mobile phone, whether it's going online and using the web interface, whether it's using your card at a point of sale device in a store, all those modalities are interoperable. And that's what we're trying to create here. Who are our customers? We think of our customers as governments, NGOs, private businesses, social enterprises, anybody who wants to serve the base of the pyramid that believes that they can do so digitally, or where a digital functionality will assist them. Our hope is to drive further innovation, to drive innovation upon these services. So our idea is to have an open styled architecture, to open it up for innovation on our APIs, such that we will not only encourage standardization, encourage standards, but also that we will encourage innovation upon these standards. So that now, when a woman in Uganda, who is currently, to one implementer, a subsistence farmer, to another, a lactating mother, to a third, she's a member of a VSLA, to fourth, she's a beneficiary of shelter assistance, she now just becomes an individual with one community pass. That's our vision. We have a new go-to-market concept. Again, very analogous to the way we go to market in our core Mastercard model. We have a network. So if you think about, actually, few people know this, but before we IPO'd in 2006, I always say we were an NGO of sorts. We were an association of bank members. So we were owned by our bank members. And the reason we were set up was to foster collaboration out of competition. Actually, what we did is by setting up this network construct and this franchise construct, we turned competition into collaboration. I'm going to pick up on the collaboration word that has been mentioned earlier today. So we've come up with a new go-to-market that we're hoping mimics this go-to-market. It's called the Smart Communities Coalition. Many folks around the room are members of the Smart Communities Coalition. We founded it with USAID's Power Africa. NetHope is a member. We've got over 50 members around that have now joined, including NGOs, INGOs like Mercy Corps and World Vision, companies like Microsoft and Shell, Accenture, influencers like the GSMA. But our vision for the Smart Communities Coalition is a different kind of coalition, not a vanity coalition, not one where you go up there and just put a brand up. But it's actually meant to be a collaboration of practitioners to say, instead of what is the traditional model of, I've got a product, let me get funding and let me find out how many places I can go disseminate it. Let's go into a market, let's go into a context, let's go into a community. The first community that we're going into is Kakuma in Kenya. And say, what are the problems we're trying to solve? Let's map out the challenges, map out the needs of the beneficiaries, and then crowd in service providers, and then crowd in funding to do it. So we're really trying to accomplish a really unique go-to-market methodology. For any of you who want to know more about this, we're having a little meeting tomorrow about it, 8 a.m. I think it's 7:30, so you have to be an early riser in the Flamingo room. But please join us. So just wrapping up, in conclusion, look, I think all of us gathered in this room are committed to improving the lives of others. Whether you're an NGO, whether you're a private sector entity, whether you're a public person, whether you represent a private company. We've all invested financially, we've all invested personally, we've all invested emotionally. And I think nobody would be here if we didn't have that passion and want to make the world a better place. I think there's a path to getting there, and it involves, yes, partnership, yes, collaboration, but I think collaboration and partnership has to be more than a concept. It has to be more than a notion. We have to come up with constructs, with networks, with franchise models, with platforms that make this happen. So we can do better together, and I'd like to do better with you, so please join me and join us, and we'd like to partner with you. I have a quick video that I'd like to show you that tells you a little bit about the Community Pass vision. So maybe you can cue it.
Around the world, there are 550 million smallholder farmers, yet 1/3 of all food production is wasted and 800 million individuals go hungry. Imagine a world where poor farmers can easily sell their crops at market, enabling them to grow their businesses and raise their income. Today, more than 3 million people die from vaccine-preventable diseases, half of them children under 5. Imagine a world where families can readily immunize their children, ensuring a healthy start to life. Globally, over 260 million children are not in school. Imagine a world where parents and administrators can more conveniently engage with schools and teachers, permitting children to stay in school and realize their full potential. Imagine a world where innovation and technology improves the lives of those most in need. At Mastercard, we believe the world we imagine is possible, and we're building it. Community Pass is a digital platform that unlocks access to services for underserved people and communities through a single user experience. a path that allows them to access markets and appropriate subsidies, receive quality healthcare, mobilize the necessary resources to keep children in school, and more. For our customers, governments, not-for-profit organizations, financial institutions, and technology providers, Community Pass provides a streamlined platform to deliver digital tools and provides advanced analytics to help them make services available to more people more efficiently. Today, we can empower people and create ecosystems that match needs with capabilities. Today, we can pave the path from poverty to prosperity. Today, we can turn imagination into reality.
Any questions for Tara? Yeah, I know, exactly. Lauren's going to put you on the spot.
So Tara, I have a question for you. Tara, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
What do you see as the biggest obstacle to getting started to the point where where we reach the tipping point where this becomes a reality?
It's a great question. I think the greatest, it's probably anchor customers, right? It's a little bit of, so the toughest part is we're a little bit sort of building what's the analogy? You're building the aircraft as you're trying to fly it. Because we want to make sure that in each case, we're doing it for local needs and for customer, not only for customer needs, to suit customer needs, but to serve local market needs. So in many cases, what we find is folks simultaneously want to have the ability to infinitely customize, but they also want it ready today to deploy tomorrow can you put it in market in 3 months? So I think there's a bit of a timing thing. That would be one challenge. I think the other challenge is just the commerciality of it. So these things are expensive to build. We have to find a way, and that's where some of the blended finance models, or we're reaching out and sort of having, partnerships with donors helps, because it's expensive. And while, Mastercard is spending a lot to do this investment, as a private sector enterprise, your pockets can only go so deep before you have to start answering to your shareholders of why you're investing tens of millions of dollars in something that's not earning money, right? So to me, that's the balance, right? Is how do you build fast enough, robust enough, without offsetting, revenues for the platform. Yeah. Lauren broke the ice.
Pizarro from Haifa International, and I am a blockchain enthusiast,
Okay.
right, especially with Bitcoin. And I am a Bitcoin enthusiast because it's the first time that you can transfer value from point A to point B without the intermediary, like the internet. So my question to you, and that is why I said, well, this is big, and this can help NGO to close the gap, right? That's why I am a blockchain enthusiast. So how, in your proposal, how are you dealing with regulation? Because for me, the bigger challenge is, in terms of financial inclusion, is education, but also regulation. For me, the technology is there. So how are you dealing with regulation country by country?
We're doing it country by country. We're doing it country by country is the short answer, right? So I think you're absolutely correct. I mean, everything changes country by country. So we start with legal scans, and it's not just country by country, it's sector by sector. So the regulations are going to be different about, from financial regulations dealing financial accounts with, from healthcare data, from other data. So it has to be done country by country. And that's one of the things, if you think about it, that actually Mastercard does as a core business anyway. So we're very used to that. That is our process where we enter a market and we don't just enter, to your point, a huge portion, and we talk a lot about this. When we talk about interoperability, people think that interoperability is a technology solution. Actually, that's the smallest part of it, right? The big part of interoperability is ensuring that all the nodes on your network, that all the players on your network comply with local, regulations, with laws, with franchise laws, that there is a repudiation mechanism if someone doesn't make good on the commitment that they've made on your network, that there is a way to do, we call chargebacks, that there is a way to do. So these are all various elements, I'd say, that is part of our core competency of what we do, and you're absolutely correct, it's not easy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it, Tara. And thanks to Adrian as well. So, closing remarks. This will be really quick, but there's a few things you need to know before you leave. Oops. Am I up? Does it say reminder from the Center for the Digital Nonprofit? Great. Frederick and JL, after the session this morning, said, please remind everybody that we want you to take the DNA. It's on the Solution Center. It's free to take. It's electronic. It's quick. And not just you, the people sitting in these seats, but take it back and have people in your organization take it too. And the last bullet there, implementing partners, people you work with in your organizations, have them take it. Because the more data we have here that we can feed back to you, feed back to others, build out what's going to be helpful will really be important. So remember to take the DNA and share it with others. This is the list that was up here this morning, things you need to remember tomorrow. We're a little different schedule tomorrow, so make sure you've picked out your workshop that you want to attend. Big thank you to Splunk, who will support and sponsor our happy hour tomorrow night. I want to remind you all about Impact Cloud's Interoperability Lab and their desire to see you there and the great incentive they've given around the drawing. $5,000 for your organization if your card is pulled. I don't know how many of you took advantage of that today, but if you haven't, please get the chance to do it tomorrow. And then last but not least, tonight is the night of the community celebration. I want to remind everybody that you have to have your name badge, and if you have a guest that you're bringing, they have to have a name badge, so make sure you've gotten their ticket. And at this late date, you'd probably be best going straight to the registration desk. You may notice at the very top, the location has changed. I warned you this might happen. The weather's a little iffy, so they're not, even though they did some setup today outside, they're feeling like they need to pull it inside. So it will be in that bar and lobby area where we had the Sunday night social. So it starts at 7 o'clock. There will be drinks, there will be music, there will be food, and we look forward to seeing you all there. Big thanks once again to CDW and Unit 4 for being our sponsors tonight. And that's it. Go enjoy a couple hours, and I'll see you at 7 at the celebration.
He's on the